I never thought silence could be that loud until my ex-wife laughed at me in front of everyone we knew. My name is Julian. I'm 52, and 9 months ago, I became the punchline of someone else's joke. I'm writing this because I can't sleep and I guess I need to get it out somewhere. The divorce finalized a year ago. We split everything down the middle. She kept the house because our daughter Maya was still finishing college. I moved into a one-bedroom apartment on the other side of town where I could hear my neighbor's TV through the bathroom wall. I drove a 2009 Honda that rattled when I went over 45. My ex-wife Sloan kept the newer car. I was trying to be reasonable about everything. I work in systems consulting. Same company for almost 20 years. I'm the guy they call when something breaks and nobody else wants to figure it out. It's stable. Predictable. I like predictable. Sloan told everyone I was struggling. Our friends, her family, people at Maya's college events. She'd lower her voice like she was being sympathetic and say, Julian's having a hard time adjusting. Or, I'm worried about him. He's really struggling financially. She posted photos of herself at nice restaurants, weekend trips, new furniture while I was eating meal prep chicken and rice in my apartment watching basketball on a TV I'd had since 2015. I let her do it. Maya was graduating in May, and I didn't want her final year of college to be a war zone between her parents. So I played along. When Sloan sent messages like, I heard there might be layoffs at your company. Do you need help with groceries? I'd just reply, I'm fine, thanks. The thing is, I wasn't struggling. I was working extra hours and I'd picked up consulting work on the side, but I was managing. I just didn't feel like I needed to broadcast it. Sloan always needed an audience for everything. Maya's graduation party was at Sloan's house. Our old house. The one I'd helped pay off for 18 years. She'd redecorated since I moved out, and everything looked expensive in that way that screamed hired designer. String lights in the backyard, catered food, a bartender. I showed up in khakis and a button-down I'd ironed myself. My shoes were old. When I sat down, I looked at my feet and realized the leather was cracked near the toe. Everyone was there. Sloan's brother Caleb, who never liked me. Our old neighbors. People from her book club. Maya's friends from college. I stayed on the edges mostly, talking to Maya when I could. At one point, Maya hugged me and whispered, Thanks for coming, Dad. And I felt like maybe keeping the peace had been the right choice. Then Sloan stood up to make a toast. She was holding a champagne flute and wearing a dress that probably cost what I made in a week. Everyone got quiet. She started talking about Maya, how proud she was, how hard it had been to raise such an accomplished daughter. Then she pivoted. It wasn't always easy, she said, looking around at everyone. Being the only real adult in this family. Some people laughed. I saw Caleb nodding. I had to make all the hard decisions. Pay all the bills. Keep everything running while other people just drifted. She turned and looked right at me. Julian, you're a wonderful weekend dad, but let's be honest. Without me, you'd be nothing. You just float through life waiting for someone else to take charge. The whole backyard exploded with laughter. Not everyone, but enough. Caleb was practically doubled over. Some of Sloan's friends were covering their mouths, but their shoulders were shaking. Maya's face went red. She looked at me, then at her mom, then down at her plate. I didn't say anything. I picked up my water glass and took a sip, looked at my cracked shoes. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, could feel the weight of their pity mixed with secondhand embarrassment. Maya looked like she wanted to say something, but couldn't figure out how. I stayed for another hour, ate a piece of cake, told Maya I loved her, drove home in my rattling Honda. Went to bed around midnight. Stared at the ceiling for 3 hours. Here's the thing nobody knew. About a month before the divorce finalized, I'd had coffee with my old friend Liam, who works in banking security. We were catching up and I mentioned the divorce. Just casual. Liam got quiet. Then he asked if I'd looked at our joint accounts recently. Like really looked at them. I said I'd glanced at the statements, but Sloan had always handled most of the finances. That's when Liam told me he'd noticed something weird when he'd run into Sloan at a bank event. She'd been asking questions about offshore transfers and LLC structures. He offered to take a look. 2 weeks later, Liam showed up at my apartment with a folder full of printouts. Sloan had moved money. A lot of money. Over 3 months before we finalized the divorce, she'd systematically transferred $180,000 out of our joint accounts through shell companies connected to her boyfriend. The same boyfriend she'd been seeing for the last year of our marriage. The transfers were clean. Methodical. Liam found the pattern. The dates lined up perfectly with Sloan's weekend trips she told me were for work conferences. The money went through 2 LLCs registered to her boyfriend's cousin, then got moved again into accounts Sloan controlled. I sat there in my apartment with those papers spread across my coffee table. I felt tired. Like bone-deep tired. Liam said I should call a lawyer immediately, get it all back, file charges if I wanted. I didn't do that. Not right away. I put the folder in my closet. Every time Sloan sent me a condescending message asking if I needed money, I thought about those papers. Every time someone mentioned seeing her Instagram posts about starting fresh and choosing happiness, I thought about them. Every time Maya called and I could hear the tension in her voice, I thought about them. I decided to wait. I wanted Sloan to come to me. I wanted to see exactly how far she'd take this narrative she'd built where I was the failure and she was the hero. So I kept quiet. I worked. I saved every dollar. And I waited. The next 9 months I became a ghost. I started picking up every consulting gig I could find. Startups needing database migrations. Mid-sized companies wanting IT audits. I'd finish my regular job at 5, then work until 1 in the morning. Weekends too. I wasn't spending anything. My apartment was cheap. The Honda kept running despite the rattling. I wore the same clothes until they looked worn, and then I wore them anyway. Every spare dollar went into a separate account Sloan didn't know about. While Sloan posted photos from wineries and bought a new BMW, I was patching my cracked shoes and watching that account number grow. Around month 4 I found a house. Victorian. Built in 1904. 3 stories in one of those neighborhoods where every house looks like it belongs in a magazine. The place was a disaster. Previous owner had let it rot for 15 years. Foundation was solid, but everything else needed work. The listing said investor special, which is realtor code for this will destroy you financially. I did the math. With what I'd saved plus a loan, I could maybe swing it. Barely. It would mean working every available hour for another year. But I kept thinking about Sloan's backyard with the string lights and everyone laughing while she made me into a punchline. I kept thinking about my cracked shoes. I bought it 3 weeks later. The inspection report was 22 pages of problems. My realtor kept asking if I was sure. I said I was sure. I wasn't. But I signed anyway. I couldn't afford contractors for most of it, so I did what I could myself. Leave work, grab fast food, drive to the house, work until midnight. Ripping out water-damaged drywall. Sanding floors on my hands and knees. Watching YouTube videos about rewiring outlets. My back hurt constantly. My hands were always cut up. Get home around 1, shower, sleep 4 hours, do it again. Sloan kept texting during this time. She'd send messages asking if I was okay, if I needed money for groceries. I'd respond with something short and neutral. Once she sent me $200 through Venmo with a note about helping out. It was money she'd stolen from our joint account being offered back as charity. I accepted it. Used it to buy paint for the dining room. 9 months of every spare hour and every spare dollar. I hired contractors for what I couldn't do. New roof. HVAC system. I did everything else. Painted every room. Refinished the floors. Fixed the plaster cracks. Installed light fixtures from estate sales. Furnished it slowly with good furniture that would last. Bought art from local artists. Filled the bookshelves with books I actually wanted to read. The whole time Sloan kept posting. Wineries. Brunch with friends. Her new BMW. Captions about living authentically and choosing joy. Every smile in those photos was funded by money that should have been Maya's future. But I didn't say anything. Just kept working. Kept building. Maya graduated in May. I went to the ceremony. Sat by myself in the bleachers. Afterwards, Maya wanted dinner with both of us. Sloan suggested some expensive place downtown. I said I had to work early. Maya's face fell. She hugged me in the parking lot looking worried. I told her I was fine. Just busy with work. 2 weeks after the house was done, I texted Sloan. Asked if she could come by my new place Saturday to talk about Maya's future. Some financial planning stuff. She responded fast asking where I was living now. I sent the address. 20 minutes of silence. Then she asked if I was renting a room or something. I wrote back to just come by around 2. I found out later through Maya that Sloan posted in her close friends group about checking out my new situation. About being worried. About me probably renting a basement from someone with money. When Maya showed me, I didn't feel angry. I felt calm. Like everything was finally lining up. I spent Friday cleaning even though the house was already clean. I texted Maya Friday night asking if she wanted to come over Saturday afternoon. Told her I had something to show her. Good surprise. Then I texted Caleb, Sloan's brother. Told him I needed to talk to him and Sloan about family business. He agreed. He didn't like me, but he was curious. Saturday morning I made coffee. Set out expensive cookies from the bakery. Sat on my front porch with a book and waited. At 1:55 I heard a car. New BMW. Sloan's. I kept reading. Didn't look up until I heard her door close. She was wearing sunglasses and heels. She stopped at the end of my walkway. Just stopped. I watched her look at the house. The restored Victorian with the wraparound porch and the original stained glass window above the front door. The garden I'd started. The iron fence I'd repainted black. She took off her sunglasses. Her face was confused. I closed my book, stood up, walked inside, and left the door open. After a minute, I heard her heels on the porch steps. I was pouring coffee when she came into the kitchen. She kept looking around. At the restored cabinets, the marble countertops, the dining room visible through the doorway with its original chandelier. The doorbell rang. Maya and Caleb. Maya looked past me into the house, and her mouth opened. Caleb walked in wearing a polo shirt and boat shoes. He looked around at the restored staircase, the refinished floors, the built-in shelving. Nobody said anything. They just stared. I led them to the dining room. For chairs. For coffee mugs. A folder in the middle. Plain manila folder. Same kind Liam had brought a year ago. Everyone sat. Caleb was still looking around. Maya kept glancing at me like she was solving an equation. Sloane came in from the kitchen. Her voice was careful when she asked what this was about and why we were all here. I pulled the folder toward me and opened it. Bank statements. Transaction records. LLC registration documents. All the stuff Liam had found plus everything I'd gathered. I spread them out like dealing cards. Maya leaned forward. Caleb picked up a page. Sloane went very still. I started explaining. Quietly. 3 months before our divorce finalized, $180,000 moved out of our joint accounts through shell companies registered to her boyfriend's family, then into accounts Sloane controlled. I pointed to the highlighted lines. Showed them the dates matching her work trips. The ones she'd said were conferences. Maya's face went pale as she read. Caleb was looking at a registration document. I watched him find his own name. His signature. His forehead creased. He held up the paper and asked what it was. I told him it was a loan guarantee document for one of the LLCs. That Sloane had forged his signature. That if anyone had investigated, he would have been on the hook as guarantor. Caleb's face went red. Sloane started shaking her head and saying it was insane, some kind of fabrication. I pulled out another document. Official bank records. And a printed email from her boyfriend's cousin confirming the transactions. Mentioned he'd talked to investigators last month. That stopped her. Maya was crying. Not loud. Just silent tears. She was looking at her mother like she'd never seen her before. Caleb put the papers down. Stood up. Sat back down. The room was quiet. I could hear the kitchen faucet dripping. Outside, someone was mowing their lawn. I gathered the papers into a neat stack. Told Sloane there was no misunderstanding. That she'd stolen from our family. Forged her brother's signature. Let everyone think I was a failure while she spent money she'd stolen from me. Maya made a small sound. Like something breaking. Sloane reached for her, but Maya pulled back. I kept my voice calm. Told her she was going to transfer the house into Maya's name. Today. Right now. I had a notary coming at 4. Or tomorrow morning, I'd take this to a prosecutor. Sloane stood up. Her chair scraped. Started saying something about blackmail. I just looked at her and said it was a choice. Give our daughter the security she stole, or deal with the legal system. Caleb walked to the window, stood with his back to us. His shoulders were tight. Maya was still crying, still reading papers. I wanted to reach over and hug her, but I didn't. She needed to see this. All of it. The notary arrived at 4. Sloane signed the papers. Her hand was shaking. She didn't say a word. The notary witnessed everything. Made copies. Left at 4:23. I walked them to the door. Caleb stopped on the porch and held out his hand. I shook it. His grip was firm. An acknowledgement. Then he walked to his car. Sloane left without looking back. Her BMW pulled away, and I watched until it disappeared around the corner. Maya stayed. We sat on the porch in silence for a long time. The same porch where I'd been sitting when Sloane pulled up hours ago. The sun was getting lower. The neighbors across the street were having a barbecue. I could smell charcoal and hear music. Someone laughed. Normal life continuing like nothing had happened. Finally, Maya asked how long I'd known. I told her almost a year. She was quiet for a minute. Then she asked why I didn't say anything sooner. I explained I wanted her to finish school without this hanging over her. That I didn't want her last year of college consumed by legal battles and family drama. That maybe I was wrong to wait, but I'd made the choice I thought I could live with. She cried more. Then she leaned against my shoulder, and we sat there until the streetlights came on. At some point she asked if I was angry. I had to think about that. Told her I didn't know. That I'd been so focused on just getting through each day and building something stable that I hadn't really let myself feel much of anything. That maybe the anger would come later, or maybe it wouldn't. That mostly I just felt tired. We ordered pizza around 7, sat in the kitchen, and ate it straight from the box. Maya kept looking around the house, at the details I'd worked on, the restored woodwork, the light fixtures, the way everything fit together. She asked if I'd done most of it myself. I said, yeah, most of it. She shook her head like she couldn't process it. Then she said she was proud of me, and I had to look away because I wasn't expecting that, and it hit harder than I thought it would. She stayed the night. I'd already set up the guest room earlier in the week. Clean sheets, extra blankets, a lamp from an estate sale that gave off warm light. I showed her where everything was. She hugged me goodnight and went to her room. I heard the door close softly. I went up to my office on the 3rd floor, the one with the window seat I'd built myself. I'd framed it out with leftover wood from the dining room repairs and added cushions I'd found on sale. It overlooked the backyard. Not much of a yard yet, but I had plans. Maybe a garden. Maybe just grass. I hadn't decided. I sat there looking out the window for a while. The house was quiet, but not empty. I could hear Maya moving around downstairs. Water running. Then it stopped. Then nothing. Just the normal sounds of a house settling. The furnace kicking on. Floorboards creaking slightly. Good sounds. Solid sounds. I kept thinking about Sloane's face when she signed those papers. She'd looked smaller somehow. Not physically, just diminished. Like the story she'd been telling about herself had collapsed, and she didn't know who she was without it. Part of me wanted to feel satisfaction about that. But I didn't really. I just felt sort of hollow. I thought about all those months of letting people think I was struggling, of driving my rattling Honda past Sloane's house, where she was hosting dinner parties, of eating cheap food in my apartment while she posted photos from expensive restaurants, of staying quiet while she told everyone I was barely holding it together. I'd made myself small on purpose, made myself the punchline. And for what? To prove a point, I guess. To prove I wasn't what she said I was. But the thing is, proving something to someone who was never going to acknowledge it anyway feels kind of pointless now that it's done. Sloane didn't apologize today. Didn't admit she was wrong. She just signed papers because she didn't have another choice. That's not the same as understanding what she did. Maya will be okay eventually. She's strong. Stronger than I was at her age. She'll process this and figure out how to move forward. The house being in her name means she has security. Real security. Not just money, but something solid. Something that can't be taken away through manipulation or shell companies or forged signatures. That matters more to me than any kind of revenge. I don't know what happens with Sloane now. If she'll tell people some version of today that makes her look better. If she'll find a way to spin this into another narrative where she's the victim. Probably. That's what she does. But I don't think I care anymore. Her stories only have power if people believe them, and eventually people figure things out. Maybe not today. Maybe not this year. But eventually. Caleb shaking my hand meant something. He saw the documents. Saw his forged signature. Realized his sister had been willing to throw him under the bus to cover her tracks. That changes things. He's not going to be her defender anymore. And without him backing up her version of events, her stories start to fall apart on their own. It's almost 3 in the morning now. I should try to sleep, but I'm not tired. My brain won't shut off. Keeps replaying moments from today. Sloane's face when she walked into the house. Maya reading those bank statements. Caleb standing at the window with his back to us. The sound of the notary's pen scratching across paper. I keep wondering if I did the right thing. Not the legal right thing. I know legally I'm covered. Liam made sure of that. But the right thing morally. Ethically. Was it right to wait a year? Was it right to let Sloane keep humiliating me publicly? Was it right to involve Maya the way I did? To make her see her mother like that? I don't have answers to those questions. Maybe there aren't good answers. Maybe I just did what I thought I had to do, and now I have to live with it. That's how most things work, I think. You make choices based on incomplete information, and then you deal with the consequences and hope you didn't screw up too badly. The house is still quiet. I can hear Maya's even breathing from downstairs. She's asleep. That's good. She needs rest. Tomorrow we'll deal with the property transfer paperwork. After that, I don't know. Maybe we'll get breakfast somewhere. Maybe we'll just sit on the porch again. Maybe she'll want to talk more, or maybe she'll need space. I'll follow her lead. I thought revenge would feel different. Bigger. More satisfying. But it doesn't feel like revenge. It feels like correcting a mistake. Like putting numbers back in the right columns after someone scrambled them. The equation balances now. That's all. It doesn't feel triumphant. It just feels done. Part of me wants to be angry. Wants to feel that clean, simple rage that would make all of this make sense. But I can't find it. I just feel tired and a little sad and relieved that it's over. Maybe the anger will come later. Or maybe I've spent so much energy on just surviving the last year that I don't have any left over for anger. I don't know. What I do know is that I built something. This house. This space. I did that. Not because someone told me I could. Not because I had help or support or encouragement. I did it because I needed to prove to myself that I wasn't what Sloan said I was. That I wasn't just drifting. That I could take something broken and make it whole again. And I guess I did prove that. The house is here. It's real. I'm sitting in it right now. Maya is sleeping in the guest room. The paperwork is signed. The truth is out. So I proved it. But it doesn't feel the way I thought it would. It doesn't feel like victory. It just feels like the end of something heavy. I should try to sleep. Got to be up in a few hours to make coffee for Maya. Maybe pancakes if I have the energy. Normal dad stuff. The kind of stuff I've been doing all along, even when Sloan was telling everyone I was barely functional. Just showing up. Being present. Doing the small daily things that add up to a life. Maybe that's all this was ever about. Not the big dramatic confrontation. Not the folder full of evidence or the notary or Sloan's face when she realized she'd lost. Maybe it was just about those small daily things. Getting up, going to work, paying bills, fixing a house board by board, building something real in the middle of someone else's fiction. I don't know if anyone reading this has been where I was. Sitting in a too small space with worn-out shoes, wondering if they're crazy. Wondering if they're overreacting. Wondering if staying quiet is strength or weakness or just cowardice dressed up as patience. I don't have answers for that either. All I know is that I did what I thought I had to do, and now I'm sitting in a house I built myself, and my daughter is sleeping downstairs, and tomorrow we'll figure out the next thing. The window seat cushion is getting uncomfortable. My back hurts. I'm 52 years old, and I spent 9 months doing manual labor my body wasn't really prepared for. I'll probably feel it for years. But the house is solid. The foundation is good. The work was worth it even if my lower back disagrees. Okay, I'm going to bed now. Maya and I have a lot to deal with tomorrow. Paperwork. Probably some difficult conversations. Maybe some crying. Definitely some figuring out how to move forward from here. But that's tomorrow. Right now, I'm just going to try to sleep in my house that I own in my bedroom with windows that look out over trees. Thanks for reading if you made it this far. I don't know why I needed to tell this to strangers on the internet, but I did. Maybe I needed to say it out loud to make it real. Maybe I needed to organize my thoughts. Maybe I just needed to put it somewhere outside my own head so I could stop thinking about it in circles. Whatever the reason, it's done now. The story is told, and I'm going to bed.
Looking at the timeline of Julian's story, it's interesting to see the gap between perception and reality. For over a year, Sloan viewed Julian's silence and his modest lifestyle as proof of his failure. She relied on the visible signs, the car, the small apartment, the lack of confrontation, to form her opinion. What she didn't realize was that Julian was using that same time to build a different kind of leverage. He didn't focus on changing her mind. He focused on changing his circumstances. By the time the truth about the missing funds came to light, the power dynamic had already shifted entirely, long before Sloan even stepped foot into that new house. It shows how much can happen behind the scenes when one side stops talking and starts planning. What do you think? Was Julian right to stay silent and wait, allowing his ex-wife to live in the illusion of her victory for a whole year? Was this strategic patience, or should he have acted sooner? Let me know your thoughts in the comments.